Well, good morning, Matt. Hi, how are you
Good
doing?
morning.
Good,
Great.
good.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for accepting the invitation to talk with our students
Of
here at
course.
Escuela Libre de Arquitectura. Um, we met not too long ago,
Mhm.
but I know you for a longer time. I think we have similar things in common. We're very passionate about architecture, uh,
Mhm.
and we also shared a client. In one
That's
of the
right.
projects. Yeah, I remember. So
That's true.
that's a curious thing. And I remember we talked about also the surf club project that you had something in common
That's
also.
right. Yeah.
Yeah,
That project's still around. It still
yeah,
has some life in it.
yeah,
But
yeah.
um,
Different kind of very unique projects. That's cool.
yeah,
So
for sure.
I'll present you with our students so they know a little bit more about your background.
Mhm.
And I'll read it. It's not too long. So,
No.
okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Oh, Matt Locke is the studio director and principal at Studio Locke. His completed projects are wide-ranging and included the recently completed Princeton University Station and Store, Princeton University Restaurant and Cafe, Bay House and Sun Valley House projects were both awarded Record Houses Award by Architectural Record Magazine. He is currently working on the Red Bluff Boutique Hotel in Austin, Texas, and the Native Hotel in Denver, Colorado. Am I going good? Yeah. My reading is not very good, but
No, it's good. And those first projects, that's why I was working at Rick Joy's office. So,
okay. Yeah.
yeah.
Prior to founding a Studio Lock with his partner and wife, Sarah, Matt was the senior designer and project manager at Studio Rick Joy for nearly 9 years, where he helped to build the practice, mentor staff, and was the leader in the design and the detailing of the firm's commercial and residential projects. Matt also designed and managed a variety of higher educational, residential, and liturgical projects while practicing in Raleigh, North Carolina. He's a licensed architect and USGBC LEED accredited. Yeah, is that correct? Yeah.
True. So
Okay.
far, so good.
Yeah. Matt earned a master's in architecture degree from Cornell University and a bachelor's from University of Kentucky. He has taught architecture history, theory, and design courses at Cornell University and as an associate professor at the University of Arizona. Okay. Matt has also lectured at Cornell University, the University of Kentucky, Duke University, and most recently at the University of Arizona in Tucson.
Mhm.
In Tucson. The way we say Tucson.
Yeah, I like that better. I used to call it Tuscany. So.
Yeah. With over 19 years of experience, he has worked on 3 USGBC LEED certificate projects, as well as a total of 6 projects that implemented these guidelines as the standard of design. These projects include the design and engineering of rainwater harvesting systems, solar photovoltaic systems, vegetated roofs, geothermal heating and cooling, recycle, reclaim and local materials, and native landscape. So you have a big variety of things that you're gonna share with us, and we're very happy to have you here.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Let's try to start by talking a little bit on. I would like to start the conversation just because you recently opened your own studio about a year ago. You must have not a situation, but you must be in a state.
It's a situation.
It is it's a stage in time that you are finding your own path as being working with Rick Joy for almost 9 years. It must be lots of influence and lots of information that you have in your head. And I would like to start the conversation by that. Like, how is it to just jump and continue with your own practice after 9 years being with this major architect?
Yeah, I think that, that's true. I think that working with Rick was a really great opportunity. I think for anyone that works with Rick, you learn a lot. Rick is an extremely well-known designer and has been since basically the mid-90s. And the best thing, one of the best things about working with Rick are the opportunities that he affords you with design. And he has very strong core values there that I think exists in every project that comes out of that office. And so but on the other hand, you have to, the folks that work there are also bringing their own ideas. And I think that there's a mutual attraction between, Rick's work and the new employees that choose to join Rick. And I saw a lot of my own interest in Rick's work, and I think that I brought some unique aspects to the work. But now on my own, I don't feel pressure to necessarily differentiate myself from Rick. It's mostly I get an opportunity to more chance to explore maybe some of the nuances of design and influence and architecture that I didn't get to fully explore at Studio Joy.
Well, you were, yeah, because you had a little bit of pressure from this.
There was a little pressure, yeah.
That's a good word.
But, yeah, that's a great word.
Yeah.
Okay. So I would say that that's sort of this. I think that instinctually, when you start a new office, you sort of want to, define yourself, and and you have a team to help define the office, and so we hope that we're bringing some unique aspects to thinking about design and how we design, and so we have all of our projects are in progress. I'm going to show you a project today that is literally has been redesigned since I sent, not fully redesigned, but some things have changed since I even sent you some information last week about it. So, so it's a living thing right now.
Yeah. So one of the things we're doing here, I don't know if I mentioned, we normally at the School of Architecture in Tijuana, we have every Wednesday we go to the construction sites, because we believe that architecture it's how do we call it? It's like it's an oficio in Spanish. It's I forgot the word right now. So if somebody knows the word, crafts. I believe that in architecture it's a craft, and I know that on the studio, Rick Joy studio, lots of the work is very detail oriented, and they do some of the construction supervision. I don't know how does it work on their studio. I know we're going to talk about your studio, but I want to get the background.
No, I think this is a good time because frankly, the projects I'm going to show you will have some craft imagery, but it's we're in the middle of design, so I'd like to tell you a little bit about how that works, or how it worked for me at Studio Rick Joy. And we did a very traditional American construction administration, that's what it's called, or even contract administration. And so there is very little design build opportunity in that process. So basically 95% of the design, if not more, really needs to be worked out on paper before the contractor comes on board. So there aren't a lot of additional costs to the client. So, and that's the big difference. Rick's early work was much more of a design build. And then of course, our mutual friends, Kate and Jesus from Dust, their work is also trended into the design build world. And I've only done one design build project as a young architect, and it is quite different. But as a new office, we haven't actually had an opportunity to do design build, and I'm not really sure that we're organized for that. I think we're more of a traditional American construction administration type of office, which is difficult because then you have to bring all the craft early before you get to see it in space. You have to have quite an imagination to get that handrail correct, and we work with our craftspeople who are making things early. So we're actually working with them doing mock-ups and samples during the design. And I'm sure you do that too, but it's really important for us.
Yeah, I think also it's gonna be interesting to see, because you have work. I read on your resume, on your
Mhm.
bio that you have worked on the project in Nayarit, also with the studio, and also I like to get your perspective on how is it for an American architect working on a project in Mexico, in the sense of how much detail you have to get in, or is it's for you was the same, or culturally,
Mhm.
was it to get into the design, to be able to get the feeling of, even though you're so close to Mexico, but it's
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
the same being there as a person that is seeing it from the other side of the border.
Yeah. I think that there was some. Well, first of all, I think that uh, that project's under construction. Not with it. It's not a project that Studio Luck's working on. But I would say that one of the biggest challenges that happened early in the process was how to actually represent your work in a way that was suitable for the craftspeople in Mexico to build it, because we were used to doing these big sets of drawings, and cabinet work is mixed in with interior finishes, and everything's just sort of overlapping, and we rely on the general contractor to kind of take that information, pull it apart, and review things. And on that project in Mexico, they were used to having like trades were on each sheet, right? So you would have a casework sheet, and you would have like a
And you had all together. You had all on the same one for one master build.
Sometimes, or we would try to minimize the number of sheets. But flooring, for instance, that would be its own drawing, and it would have like dimensions of the joints, and so that was a big challenge, and we didn't really we underestimated the fact that we would have to reconfigure how our minds worked. And then I think that so much of the construction and the craft and the decision making was happening in the field. It really required having full-time construction administration team working on the project. Because that paper trail that we have in the United States, where you get submittals, they send you a document, you review it, you send it back, and it's like this very verbal way of communicating and writing. That's not really that doesn't really work out there in Mexico, in that part of Mexico at least. And so we just had to get very comfortable with making decisions on the fly. I think it was a throwback to maybe some of the earlier Studio Joy projects, which were again more design build and just making good decisions and designing as you go.
Great. So yeah, so let's why don't you share us your screen so that we can look at
sure.
Start looking at what you're into.
Let's see. So so the point of what I want to share with you today is really a project that is again, it's in the middle of a design process. It is constantly changing and evolving. And I think it's the kind of, I really would like to have a more of a discussion than a formal presentation, because I want to start out. And so let me just start and show you some imagery and just kind of share some of our design thoughts and processes as we go through these types of projects.
If, just in case anyone wants to ask something, the microphone is gonna be open for anyone that likes to share a thought, or even if it's in Spanish and I can translate, or however. Okay.
Yeah. So let's see. Okay, so this is actually an image from just down in the river. It's actually a river from our site. Our site's it's up on a cliff. This is a view from above.
Okay.
I'm looking down, and so this is a south-facing site, basically within a mile or so of downtown Austin. It looks onto a nature preserve, and so there will never be a development across the lake.
Okay.
And so you can imagine that one of the biggest design moments for us was to think about the views, the southern light. It's also very humid here, so we have to think about breezes coming through, vegetation to use to cool us while we're here. And so what we do on all of our projects, which I think is something that we were doing at Studio Rig Joy, is a very thorough site analysis. And so we do this site analysis because first of all, it's factual. We try to gather all the data of our site, and it is scientific data. But we also identify view angles, things like this. And in the end, these become booklets that we give to our clients and to the builder. And I call them sort of like this, almost like this, the Holy Bible of the project, because there is very little design, if any, but everything is necessary to do a good design, at least from a very climactic, cultural standpoint. We do, comfort levels, windrows, and I'm just showing you an excerpt. In the end, this becomes an 85-page booklet, and it's a little insane when it's done. But like I said, so there's two reasons we do that, and the first reason is pretty obvious. It's just great data to have. We build all over the country, and we build in some places that we don't really know that well, and so we have to either team up with a local architect to enhance our knowledge, or we have to actually go become knowledgeable. And so this is a way for us to become knowledgeable about a place. And the other reason we do this is because it brings the entire team together to this starting point where we can always base discussions on this empirical evidence, right? And so the builder and the client, the architect, the subconsultants, we can all hold this up and say, you told me this was a really huge thing. What? Oh, sorry, it's not. It was taking a moment to load. Anyway, so I don't know if you heard much of that.
Yeah. It was just a little bit.
Okay, that's fine. And so on this project, I'm just waiting for the slide to change. On this project, these are some sketches done by Gustavo and our team, and we started to study courtyards and vegetation. And you probably recognize a lot of these places, Plaza Dorrego. And you can see us studying sort of the proportions of the plan. That's another one. Very rudimentary kind of sketches, right? It's very simple spaces that we like. And then this is a park in New York that we all admire. Very, just very different proportions, but shaded, very nice public spaces to spend time. And then we start to, and again, these are early sketches by Gustavo. We just start to think about views, breezes, where can we have these outdoor spaces? And I'm just going to show you sort of a smattering of these sketches, because in the end, these sketches gave us a lot of information, but they actually didn't lead to what the final design was going to be like. In fact, at our office, I've kind of coined this phrase, it's like a process of possibilities. We actually are trying not to, we're trying to, at least the first few months, to really open up these ideas and be ready to accept new ideas, so that we can, the goal is to have a more authentic architecture. And sometimes architects, they bring a style to a site, and sometimes they bring the materials they like to use, and they might like overhangs. And so what we're trying to do is suspend our design for a little while, and just kind of base it on these empirical facts. But we decided that those were all like not really well useful. They weren't really leading us in the right direction. So this is our buildable area on the site, and it's just a diagram. And so then we did something like this. We decided we wanted a courtyard, so where could that live? And we thought, well, if we want a single loaded hotel, we would make it like a long snake, and the courtyard would basically just end up right in the middle. We cut it out, right? and south is down in this, so we have views down.
Okay.
And then we decided, well, we're going to take that mass and start carving it up even further, and these spaces start to become places like circulation, stairs, little nooks and crannies in the building that people can experience. And for us, these nodes on this project became kind of the opportunity for these sort of unique spatial experiences that most hotels don't necessarily have. When we think of hotels, we think of this sort of redundancy of rooms. And so what we did was we utilized those spaces and started carving them out. And so this is actually a diagram of our current floor plan. And you can see the character of the space is very, very different.
Yeah.
And then finally, what we did was we added the rooms. And it's important, you know, to note that we're the kind of firm that likes to work with maybe 1 or 2 building materials. And so this project is basically 2 building materials, and the black is this local stone, and the gray areas here are wood. And what we created was this kind of a hard shell with a soft core.
Yeah, like a crab.
Yeah, yeah. And then we cut out for the views on the very end. So this is kind of how we like to think about designing at this scale. Like, this is very pulled back and very diagrammatic. It's very, in a way, it's a little more academic. So the reason we do that is because we have like, now I wanted to speak just briefly about certain influences we have. We do have architectural influences, but a lot of the things that we've been exploring since starting our own firm has been other art forms. So there's film, there's photography, painting, and so these types of images in those little nodes, we think that that's where the imagination can live. And so these little curved spaces, these little towers that, you know, they're just very, I would call them strange in a way, very different than again, like a rectilinear hotel. And so I wanted to show you these images in black and white because there's some techniques that we borrow from these, and it would be hard maybe to see them right away, but there's a technique of poche. So if you look on the left-hand side, the black, basically the black areas are the poche in the film. Yeah. And we use that for our imagination to live. And so we don't know exactly what this person's face looks like. We can't really see what he's carrying, but we know that there's something that our mind starts to react with. We're imagining in those spaces. The twins from The Shining, I mean, that's a technique we call doubling, which is basically if we put people in like a hotel that's very warm with wood, there are moments when we have sort of this strangeness where it forces a decision to be made. And so I call these this kind of compare and contrast moments. So we have the wood, the stone, and then that's a clear relationship we make. And then there are moments that we're really not, we're trying to sort of let people be challenged, and we're trying, you know, for folks to grow. And so there's other things in film that we really look to in those spaces here. Because it's, you know, it's a mystery, right? I mean, learning is a mystery as well. You're trying to challenge yourself and students to grow, and I think that word challenge is what we really gravitate to. This is a photographer in China named Fan Ho, and we see his work show up sometimes in our work, even though it's not always like intentional. And this is some more imagery of his. But again, that kind of the idea, if you take this, not literally architecturally, but take the idea of poche and then of light, you can see how like there's a certain relationship between that and what we're trying to explore. We're not achieving it quite yet, but we're working on it. Francis Bacon is another big influence on our work because of his relationship between the black, the ground and the figure. And so we think about that also with our architecture, and how the two often merge. And there's sort of like, you're not really sure what these forces are that have impacted these people in this instance, but there's a strong relationship and a mystery that's in there. So what I did when I was a little younger is I actually did a figure ground of a Francis Bacon painting. And the first one is the Diego Velázquez Pope Innocent X, and then Francis Bacon did the middle representation or version of it. And then I just took that and made a figure ground out of it so that I could start to understand, you know, what's going on with, you know, this figure as ground. It's sort of this strange, you know, manipulation. And then we also look at Piranesi versus Noli. So what I've done is just scale the maps together. So Noli's on the right, and we all know Noli's map of Rome, which is like how we learn to draw. But what's interesting about Piranesi's map of Rome is that nothing is oriented correctly or to scale. And there are buildings in Piranesi's map that actually were, you know, destroyed, you know, hundreds of years before. But they show up in his map for some inexplicable reason. And so that kind of thing interests us because there's a lot of sort of this notion that memories exist in a site. And Piranesi was actually more of a designer than a mapper. He actually was saying, well, these buildings that used to exist, they still have a presence in the site. And I think that's something that's also a big part of our work. We believe that there's like these memories and these events that happened, and that part of our job is sort of start to, like archaeologists, start to dig out some of those things. So that's just some of our thinking that part of our design process, and I would call those more influences than being literal. So this is the plan of the current plan of the hotel here, and as you can see, it's very much like the diagram. There's a big plaza that you enter to on this bluestone plaza where the red car is. And you come in and there's a courtyard, which is actually a very, I wouldn't call it necessarily unnatural, but it's more of a designed courtyard. And then you can see through to the very rugged, more natural existing site. And there's a big boardwalk that is on the south side around the pool. There's an existing barn that's being renovated on the very far right-hand side. That would be the east side. And you can see on the west side around the courtyard, there's a big bar, an event space, and this sort of vertical circulation. You also may notice a triangular looking pool, which actually is a pool, but it's hard to really tell. The access for that is below grade.
There is a question.
Of course.
Greg, I think he raised his hand. I don't know if he has something. Greg? Sorry, Matt. Nope. Okay, continue. I don't see him coming. I'm sorry, Matt.
Let me see if I can. Greg Blaine raised his hand. Unmute. Okay. Greg?
I don't know what happened.
Well, we'll go on. Oh, maybe you need it. Okay, Greg, you there? I can't unmute.
That's fine.
Okay, we'll move on. We can come back.
Hey, I'm sorry. I was making the question. I was writing it, and I just finished it. I don't know if it's a good moment to make it, or do you want to continue with the presentation?
No, you can interrupt it. It's not
conversation. Yeah, it's nice.
Yeah, can I make it?
Yes.
Yeah. So you were talking about different art forms in which architecture can be related to, and I also enjoy a lot watching movies, and I think it's a very important medium for communicating ideas.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes when I'm designing a building or a space, I always wonder if it's more about thinking of the architecture design as if it was a kind of a storytelling that someone's doing about the space. You know, like it's not about considering the whole space at the same time. I think that it's more important to consider the point of view that the user is going to have through the space. You know, like
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you agree with this, but I was trying to maybe have this idea of how can we as architects can relate in a better way to what movies contribute to us and to our lives. You know, I don't know if
For
it's
sure.
kind of clear what.
Yeah, it's a very, it's a good question. The reason that architecture is a very slow art form. It's a very slow way of making, and it's also a very kind of a dumb language. It doesn't have, you can't communicate words to people. You have materials and space and light. And so I think that for me and for our team, film isn't really what we like about some of these images that we've shown is just that they move a person, right? They're moving your soul. Sometimes they're scary, sometimes they're, sublime. And we're sort of trying to take everything that we've learned and everything we know and also come at it from a different viewpoint so that we can also start to use those techniques to see if we can move people in addition to the ways that we've been practicing. And so we never take anything literally. You'll never see a project look like a film that you've ever seen, but there are these directorial techniques that are very clever and very powerful. And I think those are the things that we want to study because they are extremely moving. I think they're very emotional. We want to touch people and want to kind of grab hold of their spirits in a way. And so that's really why we're looking outside of architecture. Not that there aren't architects who do that. It's just that it allows us sometimes a different entry point into what we're doing.
Okay, one last question about this thing of with movies. I've noticed that there are some movies that maybe they're visually not that interesting or they don't have such a good storytelling, but they do have a great and an awesome soundtrack. And I've heard a lot of people say that soundtracks have saved movies, you know. So in thinking in architecture and design, do you consider the noise factor in your projects, or or is it just about making it quiet, the space, you know, and peaceful? Or maybe there's something interesting that you might add to the space, considering the sound effect of, I don't know, going through a double height room or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, we're trying. I think, I'll probably show you a few of those things, but we're actually trying to engage on a lot of, if not all of our senses when we're here. I mean, one of the things when you're first arrive at this project is there's a fountain that's sort of a communal trough, and it's really a throwback to a European medieval town where everyone would commune around this trough, and that's where you're really, in a way, life started there for those communities. So you have the sound of that water moving, the breezes coming through and through the trees and making that sort of peaceful sound. But you have to understand, this is a hotel that is in a fairly edgy urban, despite the fact that this is beautiful natural site, it's backing right up to a very urban neighborhood. And so we're trying to bring some sort of peacefulness to the people that are visiting here. Yeah. And so we do have the sounds, and I will talk about the smells, and we're doing things intentionally, but it's I don't know that those things will save the project, but I do know that they're a real consideration for us when we're designing.
Yeah. Thank you, Luis.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And like I said, I don't know if I want to share the hotel with you, but I also want to share some other, like I said, the beauty of this is that it's sort of ongoing. And so in a way, sharing your thoughts about it or,
Yeah,
it's not a finished work. I love that idea. The fact that it's a piece of clay that we're molding right now. So.
Yeah, for us, it's very important for them to understand the process. So you're on that stage now, because sometimes we invite people, they show finished product, and it's how did that happen? And sometimes they talk about how that happened, but it's not the same as when you are on that stage right now, because there are some questions that you might have still on some things, and that's a good timing.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's and of course we're welcoming any comments because we are a work in progress, and we don't, we have aspirations, but we don't know what our firm will be in 5 years and what we'll be doing. And so, yeah, please jump in. I appreciate those comments, but I will get through the plan drawings. I think that this gives you the best understanding of the relationship to the site. You can see the river and the vegetation, and again, we didn't really have much. The site is so constrictive. That strange shape that we had, literally the only response can be if you want a courtyard or even a single loaded corridor.
That's one of the things that sometimes we all say that as architects, well, we didn't do that much. It was if we wanted a courtyard, that's the way it's supposed to be. But there's lots of ways that it could be done.
True.
We always believe it's only one option, no?
That's absolutely right. Yeah. Well, that's true. We wanted a really good courtyard, but
it's the best location for a courtyard.
Yeah, we wanted the best location for the courtyard, but so this is a second level, which shows you most of the rooms, and they're all fairly modestly sized, and there's a much like the diagram, the water closet actually defines the space. It's interesting that we use that as our barrier between the public and the private, and you just sort of go around this thing into your room. And so it's really we're just trying to get the most bang for our buck, as they say. So we knew we had to have some sort of privacy, so why not make that the exterior of the room? And then the third, this is a 3-story building. The third floor is, again, very similar to the lower floors. Now, one thing I will mention is that you see these sort of strange shapes in these masses, and what we try to do is not take for granted things like stairs and things like elevators, because I think many architects will just sort of say, okay, let's just do our normal stair and it's functional and it meets code, and let's drop it in. And I think those are real opportunities for design, because those are purely spatial, a body moving through space. And so we sort of gravitate towards those things that people don't. And so we try to make those situations extremely
like a bathroom on a restaurant, like
exactly. Yeah, no, totally. So you have to be, I mean, Jorge is obviously one of those architects that I'm sure your eyes light up when you see those moments in design. And so we're similar. We don't, our projects aren't luxury budgets at City of Luck. And so we have to dream a lot about those kind of spaces. So for instance, in these stairs, actually every landing is a room. And so some landings have furniture on them, and you come hang out. They're all outdoor, and so they're open to the river. And we're putting a swimming pool on one of the landings for 2 people. So when you're walking by, at sunset, they're out looking over the river. You can just sort of say hello while they're having a glass of wine. So anyway, those are some ideas. And this also has a rooftop terrace, which has a bocce courts. Why not? And other plaza spaces. There's a restaurant dining area on the roof. And then this is the basement, and we haven't designed it yet. We're about to start, but there's going to be a 6,000 square foot underground spa under the courtyard.
Okay.
Which, we have some ideas about that, but it'll be an interesting challenge for us.
Yeah.
So the images that you saw last were of a black manganese brick And since then, well, I'll tell you a couple of things about that. We think that's a beautiful material, but we were always a little bit gun shy about it because it had very little to do with being in Texas or being on this site or really much of anything other than its pure aesthetic value.
Yeah.
Other than it was massive, which was what we needed. So over time, we've gone through many different materials, but we landed on a very unique Texas limestone, and Texas is known for its limestone. And so you can see it here in the image. This is showing that sort of entry plaza, and the courtyard's tucked in to the right. But what's really significant about this, other than this is the vibe that we think it'll be youthful, people in their 30s and 20s, and a destination sort of place, is that you can also start to see the relationship between wood and the mass of the building and how the wood sort of slides behind the mass, right? It's always tucked in and reveals itself in different places. And so these are some studies we did at the courtyard. We didn't know what we wanted that space to be like. These are all from the 3rd floor. In one design, we had it all clad in wood, like the whole entire, all 3 stories were just wood, and the courtyard was something you sort of got glimpses of through these slats, which was an interesting idea and one that has been certainly been done before. This study, we started to express the floor plates and to say, okay, maybe it's just like, you know, maybe it's just wood between the floors. And on the right-hand side, you can sort of see the rooms. And then this one, we thought, okay, well, let's do more of a so we were kind of stepping back from wood, right? It's like, what is this relationship between the two? I mean, in the end, we landed on this relationship, which I think is a much more delightful space to be in. But it also allows us to start thinking about how we express material, because again, the perfect project for us has 1 or 2 materials, and we just start to exploit what that material can do. And this is a stone that's been cut to certain sizes, and so we're starting to show it as corbelling. I mean, stone and brick, they like to be arches, they like to corbel, they like to you can even do little curves that are stepped with them. And so a lot of this project is exploring the nature of these cut stone pieces, these units. Okay. So anyway, so that's that image from 3rd floor looking down. And so this photo on the left are actually the stones that we selected from Texas. And you can see on the right what those stones sort of look like, you know, out there in nature.
So that emulates a little bit of the colors of the whole palette that you showed on the image.
Yeah, this stone, you can't see it in the photo of the river. The river is very clear much of the time, and actually this is the stone at the bottom of the river. And so we wanted to really make this project feel like a Texas project. And so these are some studies I'm going to quickly go through of how we were looking at the courtyard wall. And so these are all the scale, each one's modeled. And so on the left are plans, in the middle is a section, and on the right is a 3D perspective. I'll just flip through them because it's kind of, this is sort of, it's really nerdy, but this is what we do. And so these are like these little tweaks. All these are real arches on the top. These are just flat arches or corbelled. And then we realized, this is great. We thought, great, okay, well, you know, this is perfect for us. And then we realized we had these sorts of columns that we had forgotten about because we have a lot of angles in our project. So we had to come up with a system for being able to incorporate these very strange shapes into the project. But again, it was an opportunity. These are like, who would design these, right? If, you know, if you design a column. So we created a system that's based on the height of one step.
Okay.
And this system allows us to create these custom cuts that always land on a 7-inch step. And so now our stones can all be, you know, we can have different heights. They can look random, but in reality, they're all on this system.
Okay.
And so this is like, this stairwell that's near the bar at the entry. These aren't particularly great images of it. It's just, this was a I just wanted to show you some raw
yeah, that's
process
perfect.
things.
Perfect.
Yeah, and so you can see that we're looking at like how these stones sort of, there are no vertical joints because that was not consequential right now. We just wanted to see how the vertical stones would land.
They're asking what is the name of the stone? It's limestone, no?
Mm-hmm.
Limestone.
Yeah, it's a Texas limestone. It's a, I don't know the exact, every company names theirs different to differentiate, so I'm not really sure. So we also were thinking about how our handrails would be designed. And initially, we started with like, okay, we'll do a nice bronze round handrail, and that'll be cool enough. And then we started to think about ergonomics. Yeah, and I actually was studying these German axe handles. They're very ergonomic. I don't know if you've ever held a hatchet or, yeah. And so I was like, wow, those are so comfortable. Why shouldn't we do something that's that ergonomic for the, and the other thing is we like for people to touch wood. You know, if you have to touch something with your hand or your, I think that's kind of, you know, the eye can handle hard surfaces, the hand not so much always. So so we designed this, and this is a mock-up out of a cedar, which is a local tree here. And we just use these bronze standoffs that the detail ends up where it punches through the top of the handrail. So you can sort of always see that engagement.
That's a lot of crafts, and you said it's not going to be a design build, so you have to detail everything.
Yeah, it's really hard, honestly, to draw that. So what we end up doing sometimes is we'll either scan it or measure it and figure out a way to get it as a line drawing. Which sometimes the photographs, though, you can put photos in the drawings.
Yeah.
And we wanted to think about the same thing with our guardrail, because we thought a guardrail is great. It keeps people from falling, but it's not really doing much else. And so we thought, what if the guardrail was a place you could hang out and put your drink on it with some friends and sort of, you know, look down into the courtyard, and it was wood because that's comfortable to lean on. And so, but we had the sectional difficulty, right? There was this wood core that kind of came up to the inside of the stone, hard shell. And to get that out there, we had to somehow cantilever our guardrail out. And so that's what we did. We just sort of use this strange structural system for the pickets that are angled, and it leans out, and then we kind of cut the top of the guardrail drinking elbow surface to match the angles of the columns.
And I'm sure in the US there is some code for that. You just call it guardrail. You don't call it bar or.
It's just a guardrail, yeah. As long as it can handle 200 pounds of horizontal force, we're okay. And so that was another. So these are all made out of wood, and they're doweled in. You see the top of the dowel coming through, just like the handrail. And you actually can see in this image on the right a lot of the detailing now of how the core boom is developing. The columns are getting much more complicated to handle these sort of situations. These are just some progress sketches about the entry into the rooms. We had a waterproofing problem, honestly. Like I hate to make it that dumb, but water was coming down through the deck and could get into the bar below. And so we had to think about a way of designing these doors so that they're almost now these little objects that get put in place within this gap. And so these are just some sketches. I don't know if you do you ever do like a nude model drawing in school, but these are the 3-minute versions, not the 30-minute versions, right? Really fast to get an idea out. We're also working with an artist, Johannes Giordoni. He's been working on the project for a long time, and we're going to try to install one of his spaces into the basement as a relaxation meditation space for the spa.
Very nice.
And we try to collaborate. He's also putting things, light fixtures and other things around the project. But, let's see. This is just one image of the room. We wanted it to be very homely. I don't know how to put it, like almost like a country, Texas country welcoming kind of space. So we use these color palettes that are complementary. The wood is actually from Italy. It's called Trippenholz, and it has medicinal qualities. And so those are the photos on the left, and it has such a strong fragrance, and it never goes away, unlike cedar. And apparently it helps you sleep better at night. It relieves stress. So we're lining all the rooms in Trippenholz, which is a totally new thing for me, but it's I've smelled it, and it's
the name of the wood?
Oh, Trippenholz. Yeah. Okay. I'll have to, it starts with a Z. I'll send you a text of it spelling. It doesn't make sense. But you can see the diagram of the room. We have this colored glass on each end that lets light in at different times of the day. This is like a balcony that's recessed because of the sun angles. We wanted to protect the room from the sun. And then this is the shower. That's basically like a big slab of stone. It's vertical stone walls. And I'll show you a couple of quick images of the rooms. So you can see the rooms, and then we close those up, right? And this is a TV on the left, and
you put wood on the corner windows. Wood as a
yes, yeah. And in fact, right now this is a little out of date. The entire room is now wood. It's much simpler. I think this was a cost savings measure that did not save costs, but and so we have also a Baroque painting facing Amelie with the same color palette, because we like that idea of the lady in the forest. Okay. And this is a view of the bar down at the courtyard, and again, it's a very same relationships. I think that you can start to see in the courtyard these pieces of glass that are on curbs, and I'll show you a little bit more of that and why that is. Yeah, that's a little mystery, right? But what we wanted to do with the spa is to so we have this green roof. It's 4 foot thick soil, but we wanted to capture light, and we thought a spa made out of stone that has vaulted ceilings that are structural would be another way of sort of expressing that nature of the masonry pieces. And so these are explorations really about light more than anything. And then this is the actual section through the hotel with the cliff. You can see that going down to the river, and this is the enlarged version of that section. And so you can see where the light's coming from is through those little slits.
So you're on the design development stage now, or still?
Yeah, we just basically just wrapped up design development, or almost have wrapped it up.
Okay, pretty nice.
And then this is an image of the pool that I showed you earlier in the plan, of swimming out to it from inside the spa.
Oh, the corner, the triangular pool.
Yeah, so it's actually below grade. Grade is up here.
Oh yeah, you will be able to see the it's below grade. Cool. Pretty nice.
Oh yeah. And this is a section through the swimming pool on the other side, looking back. And this is a view from the restaurant overlooking the river. Kind of a twilight shot.
Creating like a boardwalk, huh? Like a big
yeah, it's a really big organic, it's angled boardwalk that has trees growing through it. And then this is, I don't usually show bird's eye views. I guess a drone might see this in this way, but I thought it might give a nice overview of the scale of the project. Okay. And then really you can see that we're basically right on the edge of development. And so we're kind of this end of the project. And then this is a image. Oh yeah. Can you still hear me?
No, yes. Before it was a little like
a minute. Oh, okay. My screen's not updating yet, but in just a moment, I'll show.
That's a night view. It looks much inviting in this color. than the black one. I think you're on mute.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Got you.
It'll sound a little crude, but the clients really had this strange discussion about architecture, about how sexy should the building be, and it was like a very, we never really had that kind of talk about architecture. It wasn't very highbrow, I guess, is the point.
Yeah. But it does look like now with this goldish color, the type of lighting that you use, it has that sexy look.
I think so. I think it's like, I like the black. I feel like the black was, first of all, there's like 7 hotels being built here that are black brick. But the other thing was, I felt like it was sort of an international material, like it just didn't feel.
It looks fine, looks more precise, more.
And just real quickly, I want to show you a couple of these are projects that we just started in Denver. So this is a renovation of a small, well, it's big, it's a 1800s brick building, and we're doing this sort of a mini tower next to it. And this is also kind of how we start our design process. Very early, there aren't really a lot of elevations, but it's just spatial, and we're thinking about materiality.
You're thinking on the top roof to be open?
Yeah.
Or,
yeah, it's open.
The walls and just take out the roof.
Exactly, yeah. Very, very simple, has a mezzanine, it's spacious at the bottom and the top, but it's the Roman column design. And so this is, I just want to mention, I don't go to a lot of lectures, I want to mention the team. So Sarah is my partner, and she's yeah, that's my wife. And then there's Gustavo. I've been working with Gustavo for over 10 years. And there's Jay, and then Danny Badillo is also in our office. So
cool.
Yeah.
Seems like a great team and good size to do very detailed work. And actually, I like studios that are small. I like it.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, preferable. I think that's it as far as I didn't really, I just wanted to show you a few highlights, and like I said, it's a work in progress, but
no, I think
we're starting.
I don't know if somebody has any thoughts or would like to have a question, even if it's in Spanish, that's fine. I can help a little bit on translation if you guys want. Do you have any questions now? No, not yet. I think you said be ready to accept new ideas at the stage. Right now, actually, I'm giving a class with our students that we're designing a tree house, and it's very interesting because we're doing all this research about all the houses that are being built, like for tree houses and all the natives, how they used to live. Some people used to live in tree houses and all the research. And I was always telling them about it needs to be it's a process of always being open. It's not like, even though there are most of the first ideas are always the best ones, like on the last project you showed, you can read pretty well that you want an open roof terrace, but with walls and windows, but roof and a pool there. I could just by one image, I can see that. And I'm sure in the process, you're gonna change a lot. Like you change on the hotel in Austin, you change the color of the material because of certain things, but you will never change that I hope, because it's very strong, like a pool with walls and then open to the sky to enjoy the sky. That connection is very, very important. It's a big concept, and that's what we're trying to. Another thing that I see very interesting about the way you see architecture, you talk about shade and light, about black and white, and that makes me think that architecture, it needs to be very bold. Like you decide to have bold, but you're not doing grays. You're doing either all white or black and white, very strong. So that was one of the things that I see that you're doing, and it's another thing that I heard about what you're saying about moving your soul through the project, through the architecture. As in some areas, like in film, it's very easy to move a person to those sentiments or those feelings, but in architecture it's not the same thing, because there are always different conditions. There are always different conditions. So I think it's very interesting. And I'm very happy to get to see your architecture through your words, even though you are building your practice as a new studio, even though you have, I don't know, 20 years of experience.
Long time.
More than that even. But yeah. Is there anyone have a comment there? They're very shy in English. Don't worry, it's not you.
That's okay. My Spanish is much worse than your English. Whatever.
Okay. Hold on. I don't see you. Where are you, man? So, they're very shy today. ¿Qué pasa, amigos?
Well, and I just wanted one thing I want. Hey, how are you?
Oh, hi. I'm thinking about my question. I'm just like developing it a little more, but it's taking me some time. But I'm looking at my notes, so that's why I'm taking like my time. But I'll be.
It's okay. Well, I'll just say one thing to Jorge. One of your comments is one of the, when I show influences that aren't architectural or maybe aren't natural in a way, like trees and canyons and things. I think that we have to think about, like I think a lot about what are my goals, and I think that to your point is like really our goal is to really move people and have people out on our projects thinking and experiencing and being very conscious of architecture and the space and their surroundings. And so we don't look at film like an intellectual exercise. It's not like reading books and trying to recreate those things. I think it's really like just our admiration for these film probably is more similar to architecture, but certainly painting and photography, these very fast arts, and they can express ideas so quickly and go through ideas so quickly. And so we're just really trying to learn from these other fast arts and speed up and catch up with them.
Okay. I think I'm ready. My question is, what kind of emotional and physical sensations are you generating when you create this type of hard shell and soft shell in the inside? Like soft on the inside and hard shell. What sensation comes to people when being in this?
Sure. I think there's the visual, right? I mean, you can see that from the renderings, and there's this notion of threshold that you're passing through this protective exterior suit of armor, and that the warm wood is an invitation, I think, and it reveals itself a little like a tease on the outside of the building, but the idea is that that's the material that you really engage with. And the other thing to remember about stone versus wood is that, and I'm excited about working out all these relationships in the project, but stone is a very permanent material. It will be there for hundreds and hundreds of years, and wood is very ephemeral. I mean, it really won't last. Hopefully, I'm hoping it'll last like longer than most projects. But the reality is that wood is more ephemeral, and I kind of it may sound strange. I always relate that to this notion that it's a reminder that we also, we're ephemeral as well. And so we have to take advantage of, our time here, and the stone is from the earth, and it will be the earth, and we just have to so part of it is just sort of this trying to create, again, architecture is a very simple language, but trying to start posing questions. And I think the experience is just like a physical one about touching wood and watching it age, and the stone really not aging much at all.
Yeah, I love your interpretation. I like it's really good. I find it really interesting, and I love the word tease. You know, if I really agree with that, it's like a tease. So thank you.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for the question.
I have a question.
Yeah.
What does life quality mean to you? And what's pretty much it. Pretty much what does life quality mean to you? For what kind of life quality can you bring to your users through architecture? You know, because we've talked a lot about materials and how to how to innovate and how to bring certain experiences, and also about comfort. But kind of wrapping it all this up, what do you think that life quality means to you in the project?
Is that a LIFE or
light?
LICH?
The
Light quality, yeah. Well, I'm so Sarah and I think everybody in our office has been to most Barragon's projects, and he uses light in such sublime, so moving, and the color of light. And I think you see that kind of in our bedrooms with the colored glass and the blue light. And so I think we use it as a I don't know if we're using light is a tricky word. I think we're sort of capturing light with our building in different ways, so that it has these more emotional, it resonates a little bit more. And so the blue light coming from the north versus the warm light coming from the south, and how that changes your disposition, how the north side of our building is facing blue light, and the south, the boardwalk's facing the southern light. But the other thing is, and this is something that I always return to, and it's something that Rick taught me, is that what we like to do with light, and something that I inherited from him, is to light life, like what's actually happening and where you need light, and not light architecture. And so we think when you do that, almost like if you can imagine an old cottage on the hillside of an abandoned area in the woods, that warmth coming out to me signifies home and place. And I think that in our projects, we always will have that, what is termed spill light, will always define the project, because it's such a welcoming and functional type of light. So that's how we think about it.
There are lots of words. Yeah, there are lots of words that I can take from your talk about. I think time is one of them. When you, it's very interesting how you see it seems even poetic, because when you talk about wood, you were talking about the ephemeral of wood that is not gonna last long, and then you talk about stone that is gonna. So at the same time, you're talking about time, and when you talk about wood, you're talking about less time, and when you're talking about stone, you're talking about more time. And it's very interesting because it reminds me to the images you show at the beginning from the movies, from the films.
Yeah.
You talk about shadow and light, and you talk about black and white, and so it all makes sense. I think it's very interesting the way you are engaging into all these elements. Right now, you just talk about the significance of home and space when you were talking about light. So there is always a significance of the elements we use in the built environment in wood, or the building techniques that you're gonna use, but it represents something. You're seeing that in a very poetic way, and it's very, and I think that's what we need to learn as students in our school, that it's not just a decision of how cheap it's gonna be or how less expensive it's gonna be a building, because you mentioned that you don't have big budgets for your projects that you're doing now.
No.
So, but we should never make a decision just because of cost. We should always even on low projects that don't have that much budget, we should always think about what could be the experience, the emotional experience of the user. Seeing, having architecture to be the stage, and the user to be the how do you say, actor, or like as in movies.
Yeah.
I think I like to thank you, Matt, for this great talk. For me, it was very, very interesting, and I'm very happy for you to have this studio with this project that you just show us a couple of them, but I'm sure there are a little more there, and I'm excited to see the outcome of what is starting. Thank you very much for your time. Thanks to Sarah. I know it's a teamwork, and
yes.
all your people, your architects at the studio. It's always, we always are the ones talking, but I'm sure without all the team, this wouldn't be possible. Okay.
I think that's making the creating your team is more important than any individual voice.
Yeah,
for sure.
Exactly.
Thank you for having me. It's a real thrill. If there are any other questions, certainly you could have your students shoot me an email or something.
Questions, I'll shoot it to you.
Sounds good.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Matt. Thanks everybody. Gracias a todos por estar atentos, y a la próxima pregunten más. Gracias.
Gracias.